In this episode, Alvin Lee and Mylon Lefevre, Cry of Love, and some future plans.
Hello, well, I bet you thought you'd seen the last of us, didn't you? Me and the man in the attic, after our temporary absence. Well, here's the news. We're back, and we're back for good. That's the way it goes. We've unfortunately had to take a little bit of a break over the last few weeks due to various things going on in the real world that took up too much of our time, and we weren't really able to devote any time and attention to this. But as we rapidly approach the 1 year anniversary, can't really believe that. It's been a troubling and difficult year for both Steve and me, and we both want to sort of thank you for keeping us sane by viewing and watching and encouraging us to keep going. And all the messages that we've had over the last few weeks asking where we've gone have been great as well. We're back and we're going to try now to keep things on an even keel and try and get out at least one video a week, especially as people have told us that you seem to prefer the shorter formats where we only cover 2 or 3 albums in one session. And with that, enough waffle. We missed Halloween, we missed Bonfire Night, Guy Fawkes, whatever it is. We're not going to miss Christmas. We'll be here for that. We're here for this now. So what are we talking about today? Well, first of all, I can tell you that later on, the man in the attic, Steve, is going to be doing an absolute blinder of an album. It's an album that I intended to do myself at one time because I think it is one of the half dozen best debut albums ever recorded by anybody. And we'll tell you all about it later. In the meantime, what I'm going to be telling you about is this. There you go. Alvin Lee and Mylon Lefevre, 1973, On the Road to Freedom. Now, I'm guessing that quite a lot of you might not have heard of this album. I'm also guessing that quite a lot of you will have heard of Alvin Lee, 10 years after and all that sort of stuff. Maybe not so many from the Mylon Lefevre camp. Now, Mylon Lefevre, just to fill everybody in, was an American sort of gospel singer, if you like, but with a rocky undertones, overtones, whatever. And he and his band had supported 10 years after on a tour of America in 1972, I think, and Alvin Lee and Mylon Lefevre had got chatting and became sort of mates and decided to make a record together. What exactly happened was Alvin Lee was getting a bit fed up on the old 10 years after stuff. I won't go into huge detail about it because I'm sure either most of you know it already or it can be for a later video. And he decided he wanted to go and do something just a little bit different. So rather than being allowed to sort of leave 10 years after or break it up, a little bit of a break, to do this. Now, the first thing they had to do, Mylon Lefevre came over from America to England, and they had to build a studio first. I mean, there's not like there's any recording studios around, is there? What are you going to do if you're going to make a record? Oh, no, we better build a recording studio. So that's what they did in a barn in Alvin Lee's house in Oxfordshire somewhere. They recorded this. They made this recording studio specifically to make this album, which is something that could probably only happen in 1972 or 73, couldn't it? Pure classic sort of rock and roll stuff. Build a studio to make an album. And not only that, but when we do make the album, we're going to have a load of mates come round for a bit of a party and have a bit of a jam. And who are we going to have on it? Well, there's all sorts of people on here. Jim Capaldi's on it, Steve Winwood's on it, Boz Burrell's on it. Apparently Mick Jagger's on it, although his name's not mentioned. George Harrison is on it, but he's not called George Harrison, he's called Harry Georgeson. All sorts of things like that going on there. So there's some great people on this album, and it's really, really good. It's nothing like 10 years after, which is probably what the problem was at the time for 10 years after fans, because they didn't like it at all. They thought, this is no good. He's gone all country on us. He's gone country and western, bluegrass, folk, and all that sort of stuff. Because there is a bit of all that in there. There's a bit of the old gospel stuff in there as well. There's a bit of everything. It's what it looks like on the front cover. You can see 2 denim-clad blokes in 1973 walking down a country lane. The music is in your head already, isn't it? And that is exactly what it's like. It's lovely melodies. It's great acoustic rhythms. There's a little bit of oomph here and there, and it's just fun all the way through. Now, this album came out in 1973, so 50 years old this year. I bought it in either late 1980 or very early 1981. Now, how can you be so sure of that? I can hear you saying to me. Well, it was around that time that the deluded me decided he was going to become a rock star. And it was going to be Plant, Gillan, Coverdale, Rogers, me. That's the way it was going to be. I don't know why the rest of the world didn't see it that way, but it didn't. At that point, I decided, well, I need to start writing songs, don't I? So, what am I going to do? I start writing songs. So, I don't play anything. I'm too lazy to learn how to play the guitar because I picked one up and I didn't sound like Richie Blackmore or Paul Kossoff in a fortnight, so I gave up. I've got a keyboard and I didn't sound like John Lord in a fortnight, so I gave up. You're getting the idea of why I'm the sort of bloke who's standing here doing this now, rather than being interviewed by somebody like me doing this now. Yeah. Anyway, there we go. So, I read an interview. Now, I can't remember who it was with. I think I read it. I may have seen it on the TV. Now, you've got to remember in those days there was no internet. So, it was either something that I read in one of the music papers, or it was somebody on one of those chat shows on the TV. Now, if it wasn't a rock person. It would have been somebody who wrote songs in a more mainstream type thing, or sort of an old-fashioned sort of songwriter. But what they said was, when they want to write a lyric, and they haven't necessarily got a melody, they steal it from somebody else's song. They'll find a song that they like, and they'll just write new words to it. That will then start them off, and then eventually it'll change, and the melody will be slightly different, and it'll become a song on its own. So that's what I started to do. So that's how I know that I bought this in late 1980, early 1981, because a song I wrote in 1981, I nicked the melody off a track off this. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, or what song it is, because you've probably never heard it. Anyway, but that's just the point. That's how I know it works. So I've heard since that quite a lot of people actually did that, and possibly still do. So if you're a youngster who for some reason has stumbled across this old man channel and wants to start writing songs, but is struggling with melodies, just take your favourite songs and write new words to them, and then a new melody will come as you change it, as you change lines out and put different bits in and add extra bits together. I think the one that I did off this, I just nicked the chorus melody and put it with something else, whatever. But anyway, that's a different sort of tale to tell, if you like. But anyway, back to this album. It's brilliant. It really is worth getting on. Now, it's been given a release on CD. And this is, again, where one of two people are going to start tearing their hair out and going, oh, God, what's he on about? I think an album like this, recorded in 1973, with all the sort of, we just record what we like. We've got nobody breathing down the neck saying, you must do this, you must have a single, you must have this, you must have that, you must make a video. It sounds better when you take a record out of a sleeve and put it on the thing than it does if you put a CD. And I've got the CD version because it had a bonus track on it. But I don't ever play it. I still dig this out. I put this out because it's like it. I've come to this conclusion over the last few weeks while I've been away from the camera that old music sounds better on vinyl, new music sounds better on CD. I bought a few new albums recently and not been overly impressed with A, the cost because it's so expensive, and B, the packaging has been pretty shoddy, and the pressing I don't think has sounded that good. I've listened to it on the CD and it sounded much better. We go back to the old albums from the 70s, they just sound much better on LP than they do on CD. Some clever clogs will no doubt tell me it's all to do with how they recorded digital this and analog that and whatever, but I think my thing for 2024 is going to be that I'm only buying old second-hand vinyl from now on, and anything new I'm going to get on CD. I can see the vinyl community going up the wall, but it's just something I've been thinking about, because a lot of the vinyl stuff is you don't get as much on it for a start off. It's more expensive, and quite often the quality control isn't that good. I'm sorry I have to say that with one or two things that I've picked up over the year. But anyway, we're drifting away from this. It's what it is. It's a 1973 solo album. Well, a bloke who'd been in a sort of hard rocking sort of band. A lot of people forget about 10 years after. They don't get mentioned in the same sort of breath as your big rock bands of the early 70s. But they were one that sort of fall under the radar of a lot of people. But if you dig those 10 years albums out, those early 10 years after albums, they're as heavy as anything. Of your Deep Purples and your Sabbaths and your Zeppelins and your anything like that. They are. Alvin Lee was up there with the top guitar players. But anybody who picked this up in 73, expecting it to be like 10 years after, would have had a heck of a shock. It's a sunny afternoon album. It's a late night album. It's nice. It's got some lovely melodies on it. It really is good. I really don't want to sit and try and pick it apart track for track, except for to say it's worth tracking down. It's readily available on CD. It's not very expensive. I'm sure you can get it on all your Spotify, Spotty things or whatever they're called that you do your downloads on to have a listen to. Well worth listening to it. So Sad, the George Harrison song, probably my favourite on the album. Carry Your Load, the first track on side 2, is another particular highlight. There isn't anything really bad in it. There's one or two that get a bit rocky in places, but mostly it's your country rock, bit of English folk, bit of American bluegrass, a little bit of gospel stuff, bit of bluesy in there. Mostly, I would say, towards the more acoustic, folky, countrified sound than anything else. But it's a lovely album. You can pick the album, but I don't think that's dear. I don't think you can get that reasonably priced. Nice gatefold sleeve with the lyrics inside and a couple of drawings. And when I bought this in late 1980 or early 1981, cost me a princely sum, I still got the label on, of £1.75 new pence. There you go, £1.75p. That has served me well for 40 years and will hopefully serve me well for quite a few more years to come yet. So there it is, that's my selection today. I'm now going to pass you over to the man in the attic who's going to tell you about a cracking album, and then I'll be back very, very briefly at the end just to give you a bit of an update on what's happening later on in the month. Alvin Lee, Mylon Lefevre, On the Road to Freedom.
The Man in the Attic.
Hello everyone there in Custard Land, the man in the attic, and I'm the man in the sitting room today. I haven't done one of these for a few weeks, so I just pulled out a CD randomly, and I'm going to have a look at that. So what is it? It's this one. It's an album that was out in 1993 by this band, Cry of Love. They were formed in 1989 in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they comprised of they were a 4-piece, and they comprised of Robert Kearns on the bass, Jason Patterson on the drums, Kelly Holland on vocals, percussion, and a bit of piano, and Audley Freed on guitar. Now, they made just this one album with this lineup, and they were on the road for so long after this came out. They were on the road for 17 months straight, and the singer found that he couldn't or didn't like the rigours of life, that much life on the road, and he left the band. And they did do a second album with another singer, which is, I think it was called Diamonds and something. But what do you get with this album? Well, it's good Americana rock. It's flavoured by, there's certainly an influence of Free and Bad Company in here, but particularly I think on the vocal side of things. It's a 10-track album, not overly long, which is good for a CD. I mean, sometimes when you get these albums that have got like 17 tracks, there's going to be some dross on there. But this is 10 really good songs. I suppose the biggest number on this was the one that's track 9. Sorry, there's the rear of the CD sleeve. Track 9, one called Peace Pipe. And yeah, I like it. I like this album very much. It's got a lovely guitar sound. It's kind of clean but distorted, if that makes any sense. And you know, there's no great wedges of fuzz on anything, but it's nice and bluesy. It's got a great kind of live feel to it, and you can tell that, I mean, this band formed in 89 and 4 years later they released their debut. Then they've spent a lot of time honing their craft, and they could probably were pretty much live in the studio for this, and it's got that kind of vibe to it. It's really good. And some of the members went on to other stuff. The guitar player, Audley Freed, actually went on to play for a short while with the Black Crowes. Spent about 3 or 4 years with them. And the bass player, Robert Kearns, played for a good long while with Lynyrd Skynyrd. And you get all those kind of elements. As I said, there's definitely an element of Free and Bad Company about it. But there's also that kind of southern rock element to things. You can hear the kind of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Black Crowes, and Allmans maybe, those kind of bands. But definitely on the vocal side, Paul Rodgers. Yeah, he's that kind of singer, projects in that kind of way, quite soulful. Very good. I don't know what the second album's like because I don't have that. I only got this one. I got this one not that long, I suppose, after release. Someone told me about it and I thought, yeah, give it a try, and wasn't disappointed. I found it very good. And I have to say that they have gone on to form, I think certainly Audley Freed, the guitar player, has gone on to form a band called Big Hat, who have got 3 or 4 albums out, so I believe. But both he and Robert Kearns and one of the musicians who's in this band, Big Hat, also go out as part of Sheryl Crow's touring band. So you can tell the kind of standard of musicianship that you're looking at. You know, if they played with the Black Crowes, Skynyrd and Sheryl Crow, they're going to be good. And yeah, so I would imagine you would get this for not very much money. You know, probably a few pounds on CD. But check them out on YouTube. They were very good. And that track Peace Pipe, excellent. There's nothing on here that goes a million miles an hour. It's all quite laid back kind of good American rock of the early 90s. There's a bit of funk in there. But as I said, you hear that southern influence, definitely. You could probably put them in the same kind of bracket in some ways as Government Mule. So if you liked Government Mule, if you liked the Skynyrd, if you liked the Black Crowes, the Allmans, I'm sure you'd find a lot on this to enjoy it. It starts with a really good number called Highway Jones, followed by Pretty As You Please, Bad Thing, Too Cold in the Winter, Hand Me Down, Gotta Love Me, Carnival, and then I think the 2 best tracks on the album, one called Drive It Home, it's got some really nice Hammond organ in there, and the track called Peace Pipe, which did quite well for them in the States as a single. So yeah, Cry of Love, worth a look at. They say you'll get it cheap, and yeah, enjoy it. It's another recommendation from me. There's nothing earth-shattering about it, but I'd just say it's a very, very good record. And if you enjoy those bands I've mentioned, give it a go. See you soon.
There we go. What a brilliant album that is, Cry Love Brother. And here's my copy, just to prove that I've got one as well. £7.99 that cost me when I got it. And I'll tell you how I got onto these. just in case by any chance the chap who put me onto them is watching this. He'll give me a chance in a minute if he was. But 1993, I went on the Paul Rodgers Muddy Water Blues tour. Now, there was a gig at the Kentish Town Forum that about half an hour before it was due to start, we were in the pub next door, and there was a massive power cut. And we stayed in the pub, and as those sort of quick-thinking Londoners do, they got the candles out. They managed to keep the bar open and everything. I presume they hadn't got electric pumps or stuff in those days, although there was some way of doing it. And we all stayed in the pub, and then somebody was feeding back news about what was going to go on. And eventually, it was announced that the gig was cancelled and would be rearranged for a future date. So that was what happened. So, of course, you're there now, and we were stopping with some friends nearby, so we were stopping for the night anyway, so there was no point rushing away. So it turned into a bit of a party. So if any of you were there that night and can remember, put it in the comments below, because I know lots of people started singing free songs and Bad Company songs, and they've got an old sing-song going, and the pub were great. Would have been, I think it probably would have been January 94 maybe, because I'm pretty sure that Arsenal were playing in an FA Cup replay just round the corner, or nearby anyway, and there were some people interested in that as well. But anyway, we all started talking about Paul Rodgers, mostly of music, Bad Company and Free, and then we started talking about other bands, and this bloke, I've never met, I can't remember his name, I don't even know if he ever told me it, but we stood there drinking and chatting for ages about music, and he said to me, have you heard of Cry Love? And I went, well, I've heard of Jimi Hendrix album, and he said, no, it's a band, they're brilliant. He said, they're really light Free, you want to check them out? So I said, yeah, okay, I will. Anyway, I went down to my local second-hand store later that week, as you could in those days. I was flicking through as I always used to do. And what do I find? I find a copy of this. And I thought, oh, that's that band that bloke was on about. That's supposed to sound a bit like Free. I'll get that. So I got it. And blimey, they do, don't they? And it was brilliant. Now, here's the sad part, and here's the moral in the story. I'd been to a number of Robert Plant gigs the year before, and rather than go and watch a support band, I'd been swanning it in the VIP bar, chatting to people and being sort of like whatever. And the support band that Robert Plant had was these, and I missed them. So I was in the building while they were on at least one, possibly three occasions, and I never bothered to go and see them because they were just the support band. So never ever go, it's just the support band, because you never know who they're going to be. And it'll be one of my biggest regrets ever that I was in the building while these were playing live, and I was talking to people in a VIP bar. The only one I can actually remember at this point that I was talking to on that particular day was Nigel Kennedy, the violin player. I missed them for him. Anyway, that's my little Cry of Love story to tag on the end. Never did get to see him again. It's a crime that they never made another album with this lineup. It's really sad. But anyway, the Man in the Attic has done that, and a lot of people have asked me as well, are we ever going to get to the point where we talk about the same album together? We are going to do that, but we're both old and we're both not that brilliant at the technical side of things yet, and it's taken us the best part of a year to work out things like lighting and backdrops and all that sort of stuff. So we will get there and we'll do it, and we will do some sort of double thing where we're on at the same time, and maybe invite some other people on as well. Other quick thing to tell you about is all this random album generator game, spotlight on, new live and rare stuff. I'm going to forget all that from now on, because it was just getting too complicated. From now on, it's going to be episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. So what I'm going to do is, when I've got a spare hour or two, I'm going to go back through the archive, and they're all going to be renumbered. So the next episode you see will be episode whatever it is, and then we'll do it that way, because it's easier to refer back to what's gone on before, and then we can double check that we're not doing things that we've done already. So anyway, that's it. So anyway, I'm glad you're glad to see us back. I'm certainly glad to be back. I'm sure the Man in the Attic is glad to be back. I shall put this CD down in a minute. Not going to wish you all a happy Christmas yet, 'cause it's not the end of November yet, and I don't do that until a lot closer to it. And what I will say is, we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for all the messages asking us where we've gone. We're back, and we'll see you again very soon.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe as it helps the channel to grow. See you soon.